everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Hedera's MVP Spotlight series. I'm incredibly excited today to be joined by Roland, Rhys, and Yudi, who are going to give us a lot of information, tell us what they've been up to, and give you all an opportunity to ask them any questions that you might have. So we're going to hang out for a minute or two and let people join the YouTube live stream. If at any point throughout this event you have any questions, please put them in the YouTube chat and we will ask them to our guests. So while we're hanging out, how are you guys doing today? Roland?
I need to unmute myself, otherwise it will not work. Hi, everybody. I feel great. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure and honor, as always.
That's awesome. Yeah, we look forward to learning more about you and hearing your background and experience. What about yourself, Yudi?
Yeah, pretty good, pretty good. Playing on my sofa at home, so as usual. So really nice. Yeah,
that's awesome. How are you doing, Rhys?
I'm good, thanks. All things considered, obviously, with the situation going on in the world, I can't really complain too much.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you all so much for your time today. We're really excited to, hear from you, and you are all amazing members of the Hedera community, all really great engineers, and so I think that this is going to be, really, really fun. So we got some more people popping into the chat. We have Mac McDonald from 3IEIO. Hey, Mac, thanks for joining. And Rob from the Ledgerama team. Thanks for hopping into the live stream. We appreciate that. If anyone has questions, let us know, and we'll either save them to the end and have like a 5 or 10 minutes at the end where you can ask us all questions. Or if it's relevant to what we're currently talking about, we'll just go ahead and ask it right then. Okay. So now we have a good amount of people in this chat, and it's slowly going up. So I think it's probably a good time to start. Just to set some foundation so people understand who you are and kind of, have the context before we have a larger conversation today. Would each of you kind of tell me, what's your background? Have you been a software engineer for 20 years? Have you always been into crypto? Tell us just a little bit more about yourself. Maybe we start with Rhys.
So I've been in software development now for probably over 10 years. I've been with Yamgo since mid-2012. For those who don't know, Yamgo is the parent company of AdsDax. So initially we started out doing live mobile streaming and VOD clips for at the time quite high-end phones, but what we would now consider low-end and feature phones. So we were one of the few players in that industry who could stream live events to what you're talking about is like the first iPhone, the Nokia S60 platform, the S40 devices and things like that. And yeah, since that time then we've moved from live streaming into advertising and now finally into AdsDax, where we're focusing on hopefully disrupting the advertising industry by making it a bit more equitable for everyone, rather than just several large players at the top getting everything and then everyone else just getting a little bit here and there.
That's awesome. I think a lot of people in our community know you as the engineer behind AdsDax, which is super, super cool. I know you have a whole team and it's not just you. What would you say is your favorite thing to do outside of work? What do you do for fun?
I'm well, I suppose mostly a gamer, so I'm quite excited. I'm waiting for the PS5 to come out. I don't know where everyone stands on PS5 versus Xbox and everything, but yeah, I'll fly that flag.
Okay, that's good to know. I'm glad that there's some baseline established for whether we like, PlayStations or Xboxes more. So that's good to know. Yudi, do you want to go next? Could you tell us a little bit about you and your background?
Sure. So my name is Yudi. I'm actually based in the Netherlands. So I don't have like a 10, 20 years of working experience, etc. So my whole career is just 5 years. So my first job, actually, I joined Shell in Netherlands. So I did various roles, but recent role was the IoT architect or IoT engineer kind of role, but I report directly to our IT CTO. So basically I do all the innovation for him in the emerging digital technology phases. Of course, IoT is the primary focus. And I do code, by the way. So I built prototype, actually the first Hedera prototype in Things protocol. The company that I'm currently running is actually built by me. And of course, now our software engineer, the real developer who has taken over of that. So yeah, actually I get to know Hedera since 2018. Like I was looking for something that can solve the problem in IoT. I probably can talk about later when you ask, when we dive deeper, but that's about me. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think you're going to be on the Hedera Boost demo day that's coming out next week, talking about Things protocol. Is that correct?
True, that's right.
Okay, that's awesome. So, we'll talk about it today. We'll talk about IoT, all those fun things. But if you want to learn more about Things protocol and what Yudi's working on, definitely plan on attending Hedera's Boost first demo day next week. It should be a lot of fun. Similarly, like Rhys, Yudi, what is your favorite thing to do outside of work, outside of IoT?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, I spent, besides, doing regular job, actually, I spent quite some time doing those DIY stuff, also related to IoT. So I think that will occupy at least half my time. And then the rest is more about, the casual stuff like traveling, reading, and I go to the gym actually quite often. So that's also my favorite.
Yeah, you don't hear crypto enthusiasts often getting to the gym. What's your favorite book or DIY project that you've done?
Currently, I'm actually working on a greenhouse project. So it's like a mini greenhouse. So we can use all the sensor to automate everything. But I'm going to add the crypto part basically to automate the payments. We are thinking about to see if we can make the payment bills, everything, because for greenhouses you need the water, all the other energy, electricity, etc., which can be in the future connected to the smart grid or whatever you call it. So we're testing if that's gonna work or not. And also you can grow some vegetables at home. So pretty cool.
That's really great. It's funny, I said non-IoT project. It's kind of like a DIY IoT project. Totally still exciting. I look forward to seeing what you make with your greenhouse and your at-home vegetables. Roland, tell us a little bit about you and your background here.
Thanks. So I guess I'm the old one in the group. And indeed, I started with the whole web stuff in the 90s. And throughout the 2000s, I earned my money by programming. So I am a software architect by heart. But 2.5, 3 years ago, I decided to start up again. And not at least because of Hedera, of course. At the time I was working at Swisscom. Has nothing to do with the Swisscom we had in the council. It was, we were building the cloud, the Swisscom cloud. And after successfully building actually my own platform last year, I realized that I need to concentrate much more on the business model side. And so I created the thing that I call at the moment the Digital Business Foundry. It's actually based on the Lean Startup platform, the stuff that Ash Moria did, which is from Texas as well. So it's not a Silicon Valley thing. It's this whole Lean Startup. I think many of you will know the term Lean Startup. So I became a continuous innovation coach as well. And in my incubator, which we really develop now heavily on Web3 startups based on Hedera, of course, at the moment.
That's really interesting. Throughout your career, you've probably seen the web go through, multiple different phases, iterations, kind of hype cycles. What's been your favorite thing that you've got to work on?
It's clear. It's the new version. So when I think back to the Web 1, everything went back down in the .com crisis. Our platform as well. We were building actually something similar to what Amazon later showed how successful it can be. We weren't. We were killed back then. And then Web 2 was for me something like, it was just digital marketing. We learned to be noisy, louder, which wasn't really bringing more to our customers. And so for me, Web 3 is really the way to start again, to do it the whole thing again. And by having such a great technology to start with, it's just awesome. So the cool thing is really for me at the moment, I'm very in the Hedera stuff. I love this shit what you did here.
That's awesome. As Tim Berners-Lee said, it's time to re-decentralize the web. So I appreciate that. And just like I asked Rhys and Yudi, what's your favorite thing to do outside of software engineering, outside of technology?
Actually, I'm a gamer as well. Also, I was always a gamer. As a family dad, I lost a little bit the time, and at the moment, my impression is that I work 24/7. But to go back to Rhys, I was indeed, I'm a PlayStation guy. I had the first PlayStation, and still we have the PlayStations all over. For the rest, indeed, I'm as the old guy. I do sport. I am in politics. I love to be also helping out, building the new trusted society. This is an important part of my life as well, to be in movements and making a better world at the end of the day. Yes.
That's great. Why do I feel like this PlayStation versus Xbox is going to become like a heated debate within the Hedera community? I don't know what's going
I have an Xbox. So
okay, Yudi's on the Xbox team. I have a PC that I play with, but if I was going console, I would go Xbox as well. So it's a divided room. I really hope that I don't see people arguing about this in Telegram like 12 hours from now or 12 weeks from now. That would be bad. But Roland, you talked a lot about different phases, why Web3 excites you the most. Why does Hedera excite you? What is so exciting about what we're doing versus the rest of the Web3 space?
This is really easy to answer for myself. It is really the scalability and the low price, or the transaction price in a way that we can do new business models. I had the pleasure, and also I didn't use my power of knowledge back then. I had the pleasure to see Bitcoin coming around 2013, 14. Of course, because Ethereum started in Switzerland, we also were very early understanding that things are coming. And maybe I was just a little bit too deep in technology. For me, it was just, we were just trying to sell containerization and horizontal scaling and all that stuff. And here comes technology that actually doesn't scale horizontally at all. And so for me, it was something like, nice try, nice idea, but and so it must have been 2016 summer, early on, that I stumbled. I was looking for other stuff, and I stumbled on the white paper that Lehman put out there, and I was immediately sold by the idea of, hey, this way it could work. And therefore, today, when I see what we have, it is HCS. It is this way of building these systems in a new way, thinking about these systems in a new way. But the thing that really sold me to Hedera is scalability and low transaction cost.
That's great to hear. I think we're going to dive a little bit more into, HCS versus other types of, architecture-like deployments later in this conversation. So it's great to hear that you like that direction that we're headed, and you are interested in the solution, especially after hearing about swirls and Hashgraph so many years ago. To have a public version of it that's easy to use, brought to market, and kind of just works behind the scenes without you worrying about the details is great. Rhys, what about you? I know you guys at AdsDax were looking at Stellar. You probably went through the cycle of looking at Ethereum. What brought you and the AdsDax team to Hedera?
So actually, we did initially actually look at the Swirls SDK back in, I think must have been 2017. But essentially, no one within the organization really sort of took a hold of the project and said, right, actually, I'm going to get up and running with this. From our point of view, like myself, I mostly do PHP on the back end, and because everything with Swirls was Java based, it wasn't something that we sort of focused on, and eventually it sort of died down. then we started to look generally at, all of the crypto protocols essentially. From our point of view, one of the massive things first off is TPS. So, when we're dealing with millions of events a day, there are certain networks that essentially just weren't suitable. Realistically, okay, you can do some bundling, but Bitcoin realistically wasn't suitable, Ethereum wasn't suitable. The other problem we had with them is the variable pricing. So that can be a killer for us. So where we work in the advertising industry on a CPM basis, those CPM costs are usually fixed for the campaign. So, depending on the type of campaign, those can be anything from a few dollars up to, fairly significant value for cost per acquisition based campaigns and everything like that. But, when you're dealing with potentially a very small margin, after you factored in publisher costs, serving costs, all the rest of it, to have this fluctuating price model, potentially that could really negatively affect us, where it's costing us money to track these campaigns versus actually benefiting us in that we can make more money. So you look recently at things like the pricing on Ethereum has gone to $7 plus for a transaction. That is, that will be unsustainable for us.
Yeah, that's really interesting. When you go to an advertiser for like a campaign, being able to tell them up front, this is what it's going to cost. We know this is what it's going to cost, and be able to, actually plan your revenues is super important. Did you know that Hedera was going to peg its fees to US dollars when you initially started building on this? Or was that something that you found out, down the road through exploration?
So from our point of view, the issues that we had is we actually did build an initial prototype on the Stellar platform. But due to the way that their platform is organized and the way that their transactions work, obviously without getting into too much of the details, essentially we found that it was unsustainable for us. So you were limited to, even though potentially you could have more operations in a transaction, you were limited to essentially 50 transactions every 5 seconds, which we would potentially fill out on our own. Plus they were having other issues with market makers performing arbitrage on their order book. So basically the network was really congested. So I think it was around the time of Hedera 18, we sort of took another look and said, oh, right, actually, this is something that, we need. We tried to actually sign up through the portal, but you needed a referral code at that point. And then that's when Ian turned around and said, oh, actually, I met Alex at a conference. He can get us sorted out. And we just started from there then.
That's awesome. Shout out to Alex Godwin on our BD team for the hookup there. That's really interesting, Rhys. So, we're obviously happy to have you on the live stream and love everything that AdsDax is doing. If anyone wasn't aware, they actually have the most transactions per second on the Hedera mainnet. I think they did over 1,300 or something like that, which is pretty crazy. But we'll dive more into how they're using us and all those other fun things, throughout this live stream. Yudi, how did you find Hedera? Like, were you into the DLT space? Were you looking at IOTA or some of these other IoT platforms? Good
question, Cooper. So we did look at the IOTA back in 2018, I think, because that's very popular, blockchain DLT actually at that time for IoT. But after real testing, right? So you notice the speeds, the performance of that DLT is not as fast as they expected, and I'm not really sure about their architecture, the lead-based system to ensure the consensus, etc. But I'm not the expert in cryptography. So basically, what we're looking at, if you think about IoT, right? So it's not just about to collect data, because that's the last century IoT, right? So you first people get put all the sensors and they collect data and they can monitor the machines. And then now they actually start to analyze the data for machine learning, predictive analytics, etc. So in the future, actually, you want to use those IoT data to enable multi-party business that could be involved for example, those financial services that we are working on at the moment. And you want to make sure that each message is reliable and reach consensus, have a very trustable timestamps. And of course, because you want to make sure, for example, in trading, you don't want to wait for a long time before you get the message, get it confirmed from the devices, from the sensors. So you want to make sure the performance. So that's why we're looking at those DLT platforms that have a high performance and the trust in place. And yeah, then I found Hedera actually in at end of 2018. It's a bit late actually. But then I watched the Lehman's video, and read the white paper, and was like, wow, this is crazy. I mean, it's and I also played the Java example. Then I told myself like, this is probably something I must have a try. So that's how I hooked up with Hedera actually.
That's really cool to hear. I think a lot of IoT companies come from looking at IOTA, looking at some of these other platforms, find it interesting. You know, it's a good value proposition to what they're doing. It's a good piece of their infrastructure. But from my experience, everyone at some point is like, okay, this is not going to work in the way that we needed it to. So it's good to hear that you found Hedera a nice platform. I'm happy that you found us. Are you kind of side question? Are you a believer in the whole smart cities vision of having everything in a city connected to each other and kind of autonomously paying based on services?
Yeah, definitely. Otherwise, I'm not going to do what I'm doing right now, right? So the business model, like most of the business model is based on a lot of things going to be connected, right? So then we can make revenue in the future, because we have a pay per use model, so based on transaction, etc. And I think that's definitely going to be the trend, and eventually the target, that we're going to be living in such a big city, and you want things to be automated, etc. And I think about the pandemic that we had this year, right? So you don't want to expose to those dangerous places anymore, but to send humans to do these things, you should automate it as much as possible, so that not only improve your society efficiency, but also to protect people from being exposed to viruses, etc. Right? So definitely a fully connected and a smart city is going to be the future.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think on one town hall, we had Lehman talking about how he would colonize Mars, and he was talking about von Neumann probes. Now we have the Winklevoss twins telling Dave Portnoy that Elon Musk is going to go mine gold from asteroids. So it's certainly an interesting world. Roland, I know you're also interested in IoT and smart cities. You know, how important do you think distributed ledgers are to building out that vision?
It's key, and that's why I was a little bit disappointed when I figured out more about the technologies we all tried to work with, and why I was then that happy to come and find Hedera, because really what we try to do as well with our platform, also with the startups in our incubator, is really to build platforms, to build ecosystems. And all these need this new way to create business models as well. So if you think about, if all we have is high price going to zero, we have a problem really rebuilding the platform, I believe, making really a step forward. What we can do is, or what I like to have, is the possibility to go, what I called in the beginning, lower than zero prices. In the meantime, there is even the buzzword approaching around that, which is a little bit around behavior, value incentivization, and all these things. What I mean by that is, when you are working on a platform in an ecosystem and you get some value from the platform, you obviously pay something for the platform. But if you can give something to the platform, if you can provide value to the ecosystem, it's okay that you receive something from the ecosystem. And I really believe that to solve the problems we need to solve on the planet, to solve the challenges we all have in all the corners of the world, we need ecosystems that are capable, that the people that are around that integrate with the ecosystems, then actually being capable of also getting something for doing good. I know there is also discussions about, of course, I don't try to go too close to some Chinese systems and so on. It's still, we want to be on the free world. We want to be on, it should, I'm not a fan of this idea that technology will kill humanity and it will take our freedom away. No, we use these things to give us more freedom, to be stronger, to have to build a better society for all. And that's why I'm believing that these technologies and technologies like Hedera, who can bring this scaling and have this low cost as well integrated, so that you can create these new business models, are absolutely essential. It doesn't matter if, of course, it is IoT, it is data. For me, it's really data in motion. That's the next thing that we are helping to build here. And you know, I'm from Switzerland, so of course the whole what Europe is doing with the whole data, the freedom of data is important as well. And so I'm sure we will see completely new things coming in the next decade.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Switzerland's been at the heart of obviously the financial world, and it's been interesting to see them be at the kind of heart of the new Web3 world alongside, you know, Berlin. There's a lot of, you know, interesting projects going on in all those countries. So we do have a few questions in the chat. If anyone has questions for myself or Yudi or Rhys or Roland, please put them in the YouTube chat. This is, you know, kind of a question for me, but I might address it to Rhys just to get his thoughts on it. I hope that's okay, Rhys, putting you on the spot. The question is, will Hedera stall its course because of other initiatives that address the shortcomings of Ethereum? They provide the example of Elrond, which is a platform I'm admittedly not too familiar with. But what do you think? Do you think Hedera is going to change its roadmap to address the shortcomings of Ethereum and other Ethereum killers, as the industry would call them?
So I have to confess, I'm not too familiar with Elrond myself, to be honest. But to be honest, I wouldn't see how much Hedera would have to change, of course, to be honest. Obviously, there is smart contract. There are smart contract capabilities within Hedera currently. So if you do have some Solidity smart contracts, you can port those over. To be honest, this is not something that we do. Most of our stuff is based on the native cryptocurrency service and the consensus service. But obviously, the main benefit of the consensus service is that your business logic and how you actually connect, you know, user interaction A leads to data processing B and output C. Those are realistically completely under your control. You can have JavaScript backends, PHP backends. You know, these potentially could be offline processes with, you know, some sort of factory output or whatever. So yeah, I wouldn't have thought that, to be honest, Hedera would change course based on, you know, even with the DeFi situation, whatever you want to call it, that's kicking off. I don't see anything stopping that being built on Hedera, to be honest.
That is a great answer. You know, from my perspective, I think we're already addressing a lot of the shortcomings from the Ethereum ecosystem, but it's great to get someone who doesn't work there and sharing their thoughts and who's looked at it from a technology standpoint. You know, I've seen, and I've personally paid $10, $30 in fees sometimes just to, you know, move money around on the Ethereum network. And, you know, working in Hedera and being able to use Hedera have fees under a penny and 3 to 7 seconds for confirmations. It's just a world of difference. Like, it's, you know, a great analog's going from like dial up to like 4G or LTE on your phone. Like, you just don't have the same opportunities that you used to have. So it's very exciting.
To be honest, I have an Ethereum account that I used to use a while ago, and I don't think there's enough Ethereum in there to actually be able to transfer that money anywhere. So essentially, it's just a dead account at the moment.
That is another problem, which brings its own suite of state implications and how big that chain's going to eventually get if they don't allow people to move their accounts under $10 around. You did bring up DeFi, which ties into our next question that we have here. Again, this one's directed at me, so I might answer and then kick it over to Yudi to see if he has any thoughts. Pablo asked, how am I getting used to DeFi? I don't really know what getting used to DeFi means, Pablo. I think, I've been looking at Ethereum and looking at the whole marketplace the whole time that I've been working at Hedera. I think a lot of what other chains are doing is interesting, but unless I think it's, where the tide is going, I tend to not really talk about it. So the things that I'm, really excited about are radically new ways to do identity, radically new ways to do marketplaces, liquidity. And they've always been interesting, but I think everyone's kind of watching the amount of innovation, how quickly it's happening in both those spaces, in decentralized identity and finance. And so unless there's a Hedera tie-in, I usually won't talk about it too much. But Yudi, how do you feel about the current state of decentralized finance? Is it something you're paying attention to at all? Are you, yield farming? Are you, how close are you to it?
Yeah, so to be honest, I would say that I'm not an expert in decentralized financing. I do heard of that, but the thing that I've heard or I have read about is a lot of governments actually they have issue or plan to issue their central bank digital currencies, and also you see a lot of cryptocurrencies also in these fields. So what I do know or believe is this definitely going to solve a big problem in the finance sector. Right? So I can give example for the foreign exchange or transfer money internationally that we recently had. I tried to transfer some money back to China, back to home. So I tried two Dutch banks, and the first one, they basically will take you like 30 euro fees. And then they try to send it, and there's an intermediate bank, and the intermediate bank, they cannot do it without giving a reason. So after like 3 weeks, the money is back. So we lost about 30 euros. Then I tried another Dutch bank and trying to send the money, and the money is back. But then there's some foreign currency regulation thing in China. So that bank cannot get the money for me unless I physically present there, show my ID. So that's crazy. So they transfer the money back to the bank in Netherlands. So I lost another like a 50 euro transaction fee, and the money is still in back. So that's crazy, right? So, and the reason that I think that they are doing that is because of money laundering, all these kind of things. But with in the future, the decentralized financing or digital currencies, central bank digital currencies, then they can easily track all these kind of things, and without worrying about money laundering or other criminal activities. So that's the key to make our life much easier. And you can do peer-to-peer, transfer without the bank because you don't need it anymore. The currency itself can prove itself. So I think this is a huge change gonna happen soon in the future.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I think, there's going to be a contentious debate whether stable coins, for example, are considered part of decentralized finance, or if anything that has, a custodian or an issuer that's kind of responsible for it. And, one thing that we're super interested in at Hedera is the issuance of central bank digital currencies. So whether or not those are part of decentralized finance, whether it's kind of this like other segmented portion of the ecosystem, whether you can use those central bank digital currencies as part of decentralized financial applications. I expect a lot of heated debates within crypto Twitter and the crypto community around those topics in the future. Roland, do you have any thoughts on DeFi? If you don't, that's totally okay. It is adjacent to the main talking points of today's conversations, but do you have anything?
Yeah, also not really. Yudi did a perfect job to explain it. I see it the same way. What I can say is we try with the marketplace, with our collectible marketplace, is still our playground. It's on the Hedera website, still known as Ecclesia. We are still working on that. that's on one side where we try to go in these radical market ideas. And there we definitely have this whole flow of the decentralized finance, of the values of the assets that are going in there. I'm not so much then in the stable coins and in the whole. I have good friends of mine who create these things, are in the middle. So I try to be knowing what's happening, but I'm also try to not go too deep, because there is indeed another project that we are working on is around taxation, this whole stuff. So this comes very close to the banks, to the, it's more about where is the, again, it's a data thing. It's not that much of decentralized finance. It's more when decentralized finance happens, where is the data, what data happened, how can we prove that these data flows were really integrated into the business, the ecosystems we know already. So for me, it's not just black and white. It's just, it makes sense to go into Web3 by having these data flows under control, by having, of course, the app money or the application money is an important one in that. And then it goes into many different directions. I try to understand what's happening and to use it for our advantage.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Totally makes sense. You have to have the building blocks of the ecosystem from, decentralized identity, KYC, AML support, actionable events on the other side of money transfers to actually kind of build out this vision. It's not just sending tokens back and forth from people, which is super interesting. And it does lead us into what I have for our next question. Can you give me an elevator pitch on what projects you're currently working on at Hedera? Rhys, I think this is probably the easiest for you because so many people in our community are, familiar with AdsDax, but if you had to give an elevator pitch, can you do it for us?
So the elevator pitch for AdsDax is essentially our goal is to, reinvent, disrupt, whichever way you wish to term it, the advertising industry. So currently there is a massive amount of fraud and wasted spend that goes on. Realistically, if you are a brand trying to buy advertising today, you either go to a very select group of parties who claim to do everything for you. But even then, there are news stories about X party did this and Y party showed this advert before this video. So no one has a perfect solution currently. But the way that we plan to attempt to get better is to decentralize everything. We will be more equitable for publishers. Publishers won't have to wait 90 plus days to get paid anymore. We will try and be fairer to the user, so we won't resell their data, without their consent. And ideally, the long-term goal is that the users will also be rewarded for their part in this marketplace. Currently, you have no choice in the system whether your data is sold or not. Your only option is to essentially try and stop everything by installing an ad blocker. And that is an unsustainable situation both for users and publishers long term.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I missed the tagline, decentralize everything. So I'm happy that you threw that back in there. I appreciate that. Is there anything un-AdsDax related that you're working on built on Hedera, like side projects, random things? It's totally okay if there's not, but I'm just curious.
So what I'm actually working on now is I've been looking quite a lot at the mirror node data. So, we massive users of the current explorers, in particular Hash, Info, and Dragonglass. So shout out to Nick S. and particularly Ashu from the Dragonglass team. He's been very helpful with us and everything. So yeah, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel for explorers or compete with any of these explorers. The services they offer are probably a lot better than we could do. And, like I say, we use them ourselves. But one of the things that we found is that when you're dealing with events on a scale like we do, so if you make a simple payment, that you make one payment a week, it's fairly easy for you to go through all of those payments and see, right, this happened at this time, I paid this account and all that sort of thing. When you're dealing with thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of payments, it becomes quite hard to get a grasp of what is really going on. So I've been working on quite a lot of aggregations with this data to make it easier to see, right, this account has created X amount of accounts, it has made X amount of transactions. One slight distinction is that we, ourselves, because of the way that we sign transactions, we have some accounts that have millions of transactions and 0 payments. And we have some accounts that have millions of payments and 0 transactions. So it's trying to find all of these little data points that potentially are not being highlighted at the moment and making that an easy resource for people to see.
That is really interesting. I think, at any point, if you can give the public and our community insights into some of that data, I'm sure that they would love to dig into it for you. You could crowdsource some of your analytics insights. But that's super interesting.
Yeah, so the plan is currently I've been working on this data. There's still more data that we need to process. We've had a couple of delays in processing the data, mainly due to we need to do stuff on the mirror node ourselves. So we ran out of disk space. So essentially, I've been managing migrating and upgrading our mirror node so that we can carry on and get the most up-to-date data and process all of that. But the plan is that we will release it to advertisers, and then hopefully, assuming that the data is holds up to snuff and people find it useful, we would like to release it to the community.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there or tease anything out, so hopefully I don't get in trouble for the insights. But thank you for sharing. Roland, I know you're working on a bunch of different projects. If you had to give the elevator pitch for maybe your favorite one or two, what can you tell us about what you're working on?
I even would like to put it on 4, but I do it in the same 30 seconds, right? No problem.
If we have time left over at the end, we can come in and pitch. Yeah, I know you're working on so many cool things.
No,
but
it's really no need to go too deep into. But indeed, it's a collectors marketplace. It's a radical market for collectors to trustfully organize, share, trade, and guard their heritage, which is at the end about sharing tacit knowledge, right? It's about how can people come together and find the trust they need to find new ways how markets could work. And this is actually going in the other ones as well. So another one is Everdata, which is the idea of having ageless data treasury, a secure data container to organize key paths, important documents, credentials, data, so that you have access to your treasury in a context that you are in. We then use similar things to go into an ideation hub called Epic, which is a recommendation and ideation platform matching creators. But here again, the heart is to guard intellectual property rights. When came an ID? When is a document signed by everybody? And so on. When intellectual property rights start to exist, how can we manage? How can we increase trust there? And if we go, the one that is really the farthest one is called The Truth is an app, which is an origination platform where we really try to get media and data events to guarantee their origin and increase the trust in the digital space this way. So I guess it's all about increasing trust.
Yeah, I really like how there's different projects and different ideas there, but it all comes back to kind of one hub of content authenticity, traceability, and like you say, trust in the data and what you're doing with that data, which is super interesting.
What I can add just for a second is that if you have, so what I really built is a whole digital business foundry where we can, the reason why we are that far with these projects is because we found a process to develop them. And I'm really happy if someone in the audience would like to profit from that, we are happy to provide our knowledge as well and invite them to become part of our accelerator and start working on these projects as well. So that does not be the only ones we really try to help here in the community.
Yeah, if anyone is looking to get their project accelerated, Roland has a wealth of experience building on Hedera. Please reach out to him if you're interested in that. Yudi, I know that you have a Boost demo day coming up next week where people can learn, it's 5 founders in 5 minutes, so it's not that deep. But can you give us an elevator pitch on Things Protocol, what you're building, and if you have any side projects, can you tell us about those as well?
Sure. So first for Things Protocol, we help companies to streamline their financial services using through IoT automation and the payments. That's what we do, right? So, but think about it, IoT is so broad, right? You can do a lot of things with it. So currently our focus is on commodity financing. So give you an example, today, for example, a oil and gas company or whatever, the owner of some chemical products or oil and gas, they need to get some financing, right? They have they can sell their commodity in a commodity exchange, and they need to get a warehouse receipt from the like a place where you put all the oil and gas or chemicals there. They will take care of it. So what the bank does or the exchange does is they will send people, sometimes even fly to that place, the store, to check the storage, and that will take days, even months, right? And then to the owner who gets the money, the financing from the bank, it's several months past, right? So what we do is leverage an IoT system to collect data in real time and put it into the blockchain so that the banks or the exchange, commodity exchange, they can check it whenever they want, right? So they can issue the money, the financing much quicker than before. So this will reduce the cash flow problem for a lot of companies who doing commodity, business. Basically, that's our current focus. And by the way, we were recently selected by a fintech incubator called F10 in Zurich. So Roland, I'm gonna meet you next week probably. Yeah, so that's our focus, mostly on the commodity financing part. And something else that we're also doing is relate to the outcome-based investment thing for telco companies. That one was actually a kind of demo things we built for a partner. So we will see what we can do further with them, but it's also based on IoT triggered data and then automate the business process, financial process later on. So that's currently what we're doing, and a little bit touched on the payment as well, because it's also important that in the future, probably we're going to partner with someone else, but maybe we can offer it ourselves with the payment capability with our product, so our customer can get end-to-end experience from the IoT triggering, automation, and all the way to trigger their payments to pay each other. So
that is really interesting. I know you also mentioned your at-home greenhouse and IoT connecting that, which is super fun. We do have a question in the chat for you though. I believe it was Rob from the Ledgerama team was asking, do you have any experience with patents? Hardware and IoT is a lot more patentable than software. He was just curious if you have any insights there.
To be honest, no. I'm sorry, Rob.
Oh, totally fine.
So yeah, but I can share a little bit about our experience. We're actually trying to do the hardware at the beginning ourselves. But as a startup, it's very hard. You don't have the resources. I mean, hardware is hard, right? So that's why we decided later on to actually partner with the other company so that they can provide the best hardware and they have their patent, whatever. So we don't need to worry about hardware anymore. This actually gives us more time to focus on the platform that we're building. So sorry, I cannot answer the patent about the hardware. But,
oh, no worries at all. No need to apologize. So we do have about 10 minutes left on this live stream. I don't know if Rhys and Yudi and Roland have other things to do after this call, but I do have like 1 or 2 more rounds of questions, and then we'll open it up for anything that the community wants to put in the YouTube chat. So I'll ask this, together. You can answer one of them or both of them, totally up to you. But if you had to give any advice to newcomers to the Hedera community, what would that advice be? And what are you most excited about in the future for Hedera? It's a 2-part question. Feel free to dodge one of them and focus on the other. But if you had any advice, what would it be? And what are you most excited for looking forward? Let's start with Rhys.
So on the advice part, I suppose it depends on which part of the community that you're, talking about. So from a general, a Hedera enthusiast, potentially the one thing I'd say is it's worthwhile learning about these other protocols and projects that are going on. I know, someone said about Elrond earlier on, and I don't know about it, so it seems a little bit rich, but I think understanding some of the benefits and pitfalls of other projects really helps you appreciate some of the differences and unique selling points of Hedera. So, like I say, things around, finality is potentially okay. Hedera is not the only project that has finality, but it is a massive, distinction, especially around the ABFT process. The transfers being was it pegged to a US, to USD, to a fiat currency. That again is, quite a distinctive feature. So these are the little differences that it's only when you realize how everyone else is doing things, you can appreciate, oh, actually, Hedera really does stand out in several different areas. And then I suppose in terms of things that I'm looking forward to seeing, I think Mance said it in a one of the meetings a few months ago, is that, this year is all about, proving things and saying, right, everything is set up. Next year is the year of scale. So it's just quite interesting to see all of the new projects that are coming out. Obviously, we'll see some next week, and then we'll hopefully see even more in future.
Yeah, I think Man said 2020 is the year of validation, 2021 is the year of scale. And that's very much how we're looking at our pipeline internally. So it's good to hear that you share that excitement. Let's go to Roland next. Roland, do you have any advice for people new to the community? And is there anything you're looking forward to?
Yes, absolutely. As I would really invite everybody join the community. We are in the process to create a thing that we call the Hedera Community Foundry, together with colleagues that are on the call as well, Ledgerama, Hashing System, 3IEIO, and Greg just joined today, if I saw it as well. It's an idea of building some sort of a guild hall to share ideas, to come together, to communicate, to talk about standards and how we can get into and how we bring ourselves, find synergies in the community to build on Hedera. As it's really, I'm very excited to. So my advice is make yourself part of the community. That's the advice that I would give out there. And about the future, I'm rephrasing a little bit the things that we saw over all these years, all the time again when new things came up. We are here in the process to build a new language, a language of a world, to create a world that will come to pass around 25, 2030, 35. Don't think because of Bitcoin and Ethereum and all the buzz, everything is over. It's just starting. We are really at the starting point of the thing, and just become part of it. That would be my message.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I think a lot of people see how quickly things change in the technology space, moving from websites to web apps to mobile apps, seeing all the innovation there. But they don't realize how fundamentally different, something like the financial infrastructure is, and how long that's been around, or how long, paper ballots have been around, or mailing, or all these other types of things. And we're, most technology lives in like a 10-year cycle. But it seems like in this case with Web3, we're trying to disrupt a lot of those longer standing institutions that have been around for hundreds of years, which is what I'm also very excited about. So it's a long-term vision that we're all hoping to build out. Yudi, what advice would you have to someone new to Hedera, new to the community, and what are you most excited about?
Yeah, so I think for those newcomers, I would highly recommend them to watch Lehman's video, because that's attracted me and how I got into Hedera. Because I think Lehman, he's not a typical technical guy, but he's very smart, right? But he's a really good speaker. So he has the passion in his talks. So I really recommend the new joiner to watch his video. It's gonna inspire you, about the future, about Hedera. So that's my advice. And then there's a huge lot of people in the community. So, just mingle around with them, make friends. So in terms of what I'm looking for on Hedera in the future, I think because I'm running startups, right? We're a commercial company, so I'm really looking at the commercial side. I know it's a bit difficult, but currently, if you provide a service to a customer saying that you are running on a public ledger, it's not Hedera, but us. We need to provide a service line agreement telling them that, hey, this is going to be 99%, 99.999 online. Otherwise, what happens? But as a public ledger, it's difficult for Hedera to provide such service level to us, right? So I will be willing to see that some big companies, or they could play the role as a telecom company, but for blockchain public ledger, right? So they can guarantee their nodes will be always running. There will not be a problem with the nodes. So the service can be always up. I think that's something I'm really looking for, that Hedera can build a relation with some company to offer us in the future.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think you hit on a good point. It's really hard to guarantee uptime. It's really hard to guarantee some of these things that you have in centralized systems in this new kind of decentralized world. But for the example of Google Cloud, having the operators of Google Cloud being able to deploy their Hedera node to Google Cloud is definitely more reassuring than some validator that you don't actually know who they are. And Tata Comms being able to deploy their node to their own private data warehouse, and all these other types of unique deployments that you can only really do if you're doing them at the scale of Hedera and our governing council, which is very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fine for consumer use cases, right? So because people don't really care about high critical stuff, but for enterprises, they do look upon these service line agreements. So that's why our principle is we don't do only with Hedera. We also support other blockchains in private blockchains, so that make sure that we can meet the customer requirements. So, but my opinion is those public ledger and private ledger, they always exist together, right? So it's like the internet before. Right? At the beginning, all these big companies, they want to have an internet. Hey, can I have an internet? But not really internet, it's like intranet, right? So they don't want to be connected by others and security issues. This, like today, everybody is looking for a private blockchain. But you see what happened now, like internet everywhere, you're connected everywhere. So that's the public ledger going to happen, to connect all those siloed private blockchain together in the future. So it's going to happen anyway in the future, I think.
I couldn't agree more. The analogy to private web internets and intranets is, very on point, very spot on. So we do have a few small questions here. I think they're mostly for me, because they're about Hedera specifically. So someone asked, what is Hedera and R3 working on together? Is there anything that we're doing with Corda? The short answer is that the beautiful part about this ecosystem is that you don't really have to ask permission to do things. You can go and integrate and connect systems together. You can use open source software and public networks. So we do have on our GitHub a Corda network that uses HCS as a notary service. We're very interested in ways that we can connect different types of private blockchains together, whether that's Corda to Hyperledger Fabric or Corda to Amazon's Quantum Ledger database or any other type of deployment that people want to use. HCS works very, very well as kind of a middleware in between all of these different siloed systems. Similarly to Yudi's point, you need a public network that can tie all these things together, that no one has to trust the single parties that are running those private databases or private deployments. So that's the kind of short answer. Check out our GitHub. Stay tuned to learn more about work we're doing with Corda. We have another question from Rob here. Any insights into whether or not the USPS will be using HCS for ordering or voting with their patent that they just filed or got approved for? Unfortunately, there's nothing I can really share about that. I don't really have any good insights or anything I can talk about there. But it is an interesting use case. Sorry. Someone else asked about the time frame for proxy staking. Unfortunately, we don't have a timeline for that yet. When Hedera says that we have new features coming out and we go out and kind of, publicly announce, features or our roadmap, we want to be, as confident as we possibly can be that we will deliver on those deadlines and, not run into some of these situations like you see with other networks where they, came out with a bunch of features and 3 years later, they're still building them. So, when you hear a timeline for proxy staking, you can be sure that it is one that we are very confident that we will deliver on. So that might be disappointing now, but at least we don't, miss your expectations. We also have Nick Siafakis in the chat, the developer of #info. Just wanted to say hi. Thanks for stopping in. He was on our last MVP Spotlight series. So if you haven't seen that one yet, please go watch the first version of this series. And I don't know if we have any other questions in this chat. So the last thing I would like to do is if people want to reach out to you, if they want to contact you, get involved, or learn more about what you're doing, Roland, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
I function good over LinkedIn. You find me via Roland Ringgenberg on LinkedIn. My personal website is rolandringgenberg.tech, or .com will work as well. So just reach out to me. Twitter doesn't work that well. I am on Twitter, but until I see it, it's almost over again. So just try to reach out over the channels that mails and just Google it. We will find each other, no problem at all.
That's great. Yudi, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you? You are on mute, my friend.
Oh, sorry. So 2 ways. You can search my name on LinkedIn. So my name is very easy, YUDIXU. So that's my name. Or you can go to thingsprotocol.com. And yeah, you can find you can find my contact information there. So feel free to drop me an email.
Cool. And please attend Boost's first demo day next week. You'll hear from 5 founders of 5 different projects, and they have 5 minutes to pitch what they're building. So you'll hear from Yudi and Things Protocol on that event next week. Rhys, how can people get in touch with you or the AdsDax team if you want to plug that as well?
Yeah, so me personally, my Twitter is @RhysD. To be honest, a lot of it is just my personal musings and things that I find funny. So yeah, I don't know how relevant it is for the Hedera community, but you're more than welcome to follow me. And then to be honest, if you actually want to chat to me, it's probably best off in the Discord. So I'm reasonably active in the Hedera Discord.
That is great. We appreciate that. And maybe, if you tag Rhys on Twitter or maybe some of the other members of the Hedera community, we can finally get back and settle the PlayStation versus Xbox debate, which, I'm curious if people are talking about in Telegram right now. I see Paul Madsen is in the chat and said, "Hey, Cooper, I missed you on the 6 a.m. podcast recording." Paul, you told me that was optional. Come on, man. You can't publicly shame me like this. But we do have a bunch of fun podcasts coming down the line. If there's anyone you would like to see on a Hedera live stream or a Hedera podcast, please reach out. We're always taking ideas. And we want to make content for the community that the community wants. So if there's anyone that you would like us to get on a live stream like this or on the podcast that me and Paul host, please let us know. And with that, I will say thank you all for joining this episode 2 of the Hedera MVP Spotlight series. You're all very talented individuals building awesome things in the Hedera community, and we're very lucky to have you. So I appreciate your time. We will have another one of these next month, episode 3, with other Hedera MVPs. So I hope to see you all then. Thank you and have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. It was a pleasure and honor. And see you in Zurich, Judy.
See you, Roland.
Zurich has to be one of my favorite cities, so I'm quite jealous.